Good afternoon. This is John McAllister with Upper Sandusky, my hometown. This is my second interview. I have Graham Treadway, local school teacher, a history teacher, coming on. Graham does so many things in Upper Sandusky, so many projects, or he gets involved. He is tremendously gifted in some ways, musician. And first he's a teacher, and then he coaches golf, and then he does, all different kinds of things. Wine stock is what I remember. I'm looking forward to asking him questions about all those things. I went through, I don't know Graham very well. So I went through Facebook and saw as many pictures and comments as I could. And I do have some kind of idea who he is. And I will tell you, he is a very hardworking, great father, great teacher, hardworking guy. And he's only 42 years old. He's some of the newer, early old guys. So I think that's kind of crazy, but I think it's who he is. Thank you. And I sit back and enjoy the video podcast with Graham Treadway. Yep. Today, I'm excited to meet, I would call him a young Mr. Upper Sandusky. Graham Treadway, and I think, 42?
I'm 42, yeah. I'll be 43 and I'll be 43 in a couple weeks.
I was going to say in February. I looked all that stuff up.
Nice.
I got to know a little bit about you, man.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'll be in Jamaica for my 43rd birthday.
In Jamaica.
Hopefully, assuming COVID allows me to go.
Yeah, that's crazy. Of course, we know all about that silly stuff. Let's don't ruin this interview talking about COVID. No, I'm joking. Okay, Graham, I've read so much about you. I didn't know much, and I went through the Facebook, and I Googled you and all that stuff to find out all I could. And I'm so impressed with a younger guy, kind of, the older people are kind of, in Upper Sandusky, a town which I love dearly, the older people are starting to, wind down a little bit. And then we need a new generation, and I think coming. And I think what you guys do with wine stock is where you won me over. I mean, every year you get a little bit better. Every year you add something to it. And I don't mean that in a negative way. But let's talk. First of all, you're a teacher, Upper Sandusky. What does AYA mean on your resume?
So my degree is in social studies education, adult to adolescent, young adults. So really it just means 6th graders through seniors.
Wow. I was in it for 31 years and you stumped me on that. I couldn't figure out what it was, but you do teach history, right?
I teach history. That degree was that was just what they called it when I got done. But I think now they've just separated into age years. It's like 6 through 12, but mine was adult or adolescent and young adult. Yeah. So I teach. I've taught a bunch of stuff, but I can teach anything social studies related. So I've taught everything from constitutional law, Ohio history. Right now, I teach local history. Teach college U.S. history through the University of Findlay. I'm an adjunct through Findlay. And then I'm the government teacher at Upper.
Boy, that's difficult. Government, I think, it's really necessary, but you got to find a way to make it interesting, I think.
Yeah, I've been telling people lately, there's no better time to be a government teacher than right now. It's almost as easy as it's ever been.
My goodness, yes, I would totally agree with you. Yeah. What's the best thing about being a teacher?
I think it keeps me young, man. I'm around kids every day. I have to stay. If I don't stay sharp and fresh,
Yeah.
it's easy to lose them. They'll go away quickly, and so it
Oh,
keeps me on my toes. And I like kids. They frustrate me sometimes, but in the grand scheme, they're all just young adults that are trying to figure out what they're going to do with their lives, and I love having them at that time. So
and they don't know. And how could you possibly know? You know what I'm saying? They don't even know. So
they,
you've got to, and I would tell you, we could talk. Now, I'm 73. I've been retired from education for what, 18 years, I think. And I taught 31 years, and I taught junior high the last 18. And
yeah,
honest to goodness, I was born to be a junior high teacher. I mean, I love junior high
yeah.
because, and now,
It's a great age. You're just getting kids. I think if you're not going to be good at it, it'd be a horrible job. But I
oh,
think if you're good at teaching people, young adults, whether it's a 13-year-old or a 17-year-old, it's just such a great time to be able to influence
yeah.
students.
And always want them to come back the next day.
Oh yeah,
Always want them. Let's be honest. I don't want to beat this up here because you and I could talk education for an hours.
oh yeah,
I don't think everybody feels that way. And I don't think teachers feel that way. And I think, and I've done this football business for 30 years. I'm not, and we'll, I've dealt with African American kids more than white kids. And if they think, now I know it sounds silly to the old school guys, if they think you care about them, then you can do a lot.
oh
If you think you
yeah.
care, you do a lot. Now, if you kind of count them as a number or look at the clock or anything, then you're done. You can't do
Yeah. And the key to making them think you care is to care. You have to care. They can sense
Oh
if
my.
you're genuine, and they know if you're just putting on a show. And
Oh,
I I make it a point. I learn every kid's name. I tell kids I get 3 days. Whenever we start school, I always by Friday I will know everyone's names, and that's all I'm going to do the first week is I'm going to learn who you are,
yeah.
and I
That's all
usually
you
am
have
pretty
to
good.
do.
It's so hard. But I go, that's my homework. I go home with pictures and
Oh,
I
do you?
study them and I close my eyes. I try to remember where they sit and I try to think of things about them. And then I feel like once I know their name, then I can begin to build like, okay, this is who you are. And you can start, but I learned that early on that, man, sometimes it'd be week 3 and I got a kid, I want to say something real quick to him. And
Yeah,
if I call him buddy or hey
yeah.
dude or hey man, but they know I don't know their name. And so
Yeah,
I always start there and then I go from there.
that's super. And
But
I'm being opinionated and outgoing and all that stuff myself. I would tell teachers, and we do have to go to something else. Junior high, you think every Monday, every Tuesday, kids come in, fold their hands, get their book open, and sit there and go, "I'm ready to learn today." Boy, my stepfather didn't beat me up last night, didn't beat my mother up, and my parents both. It's crazy. And I
it
said,
is.
some days they have bad days. I said, teachers have bad days.
I,
But
I had
anyway,
somebody say something to me the other day. They said, well, what? I hear all this stuff about high school kids and dealing with stress. Like, what do high school kids have to be stressed about? I was like, do you remember high
oh
school?
my,
Sure. As we grow up, we learn to think that it's petty, that stuff's petty, but it's, man,
not to
they're in
them,
the trenches. They're just in the trenches, man. There's
not to
so
them.
much uncertainty and, just insecurity that goes along with being in that age group. And
Yeah,
it's awesome to see kids that grow up out of that and then come back a couple years later. You know how that goes.
oh my,
Uh,
my.
this makes it well worthwhile.
Okay, second, I wrote down golf coach. Tell me about golf coach.
So
And
yeah,
how hard is that?
uh,
You
well,
gotta have some. You gotta have some fellas. You gotta have some cats.
it's all about coaching golf. I always say I have a good year, I have a bad year. It's all the kids. It's
Yeah,
I think if I get nice kids that want to play golf, that's a plus.
Yeah.
If I get kids that want to play golf whose dad wanted them to play golf, it's better. If I get a kid whose grandpa and dad both wanted him to play golf, then my job's done.
Yeah.
All I have to do is kind of teach them how to keep a level head and play smart. You know, it's tough to teach a kid. If I get a kid their freshman year that's never played golf,
Ooh.
it's tough. It's tough that you're going to learn.
Right.
All I can do is hope maybe I can get them to be a bogey golfer,
Yeah.
by the time they graduate.
Boy.
And if a freshman wants to work and they get out all summer, they could become a pretty solid golfer.
Yeah.
But what I hope is that I get kids who've kind of been coming up, learning how to golf when they're young.
Right. That's
I'd say age 12. If you're not golfing by age 12, you're starting to get behind. So maybe a little better than like say basketball or baseball, where just because of the way the system works, you pretty much have to be playing those sports at 6, 7 years old.
Right.
You don't have to, but it's going to help you.
Yeah.
But golf's great. I love golf. Is so laid back, and I'm sort of I enjoy the mental side of sports anyway. Just the strategy and how to keep kids calm and looking ahead instead of looking back. I think golf's just a great game to teach kids that skill that then can translate over into their life too. Right.
Right. For sure. That's really good. Okay. Golf teacher. Now, the next thing I have down is Real Stories Podcast.
Yeah. So
okay, tell me about that really quick.
Okay, well, here's how this started. So I've been a podcast listener for 20 years, and I've got a few that I started listening to in college in 2000, 2001 when podcasts were like just coming out.
Right.
And I always thought maybe I could do it, but it wasn't something I was had a lot of time to do. And then when the pandemic hit, we were home and I had to teach. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. So I got on Amazon like the second day after we closed down, and I got all the stuff. And
trust me, I'm with you on this.
yeah, exactly. And I started doing them each class. I would do a podcast every third day, and I would release a podcast, and I called them Tread Talks.
Okay.
And they would just be basically, if I was teaching U.S. history about, Thomas Jefferson, I'd just do an episode on Thomas Jefferson. And then I learned to edit it a little and started getting a little better at it. So then my friend Brian Coomer, who has been my best friend for 20 years, he and I are always digging into we love going on little road trips and looking at historical markers and just that stuff. You said earlier that all the old timers are kind of going away. I consider myself a young old timer. It's like and so Brian and I got this idea. We're like, well, the podcast market is so hard to get into because, you've got celebrities doing podcasts that already have millions of followers.
Right.
And so we thought, well, what do we actually know about? What's something that we actually know about? And, and so we did Upper Sandusky. We started with Upper and Wyandotte County, and we're going to kind of expand it as we go. But yeah, we're just telling stories, kind of folk stories from Northern Ohio is sort of the rub. And we called it Real Stories. The idea behind Real Stories was we always joked when someone would tell a story and be like, this is a true story.
Yeah.
And we always said, well, it's a real story. Whether it's true or not, who knows? But it definitely is a story. Yeah, it's been written down. It was in a newspaper at one time. And so that's where that idea of real stories came from, was that we kind of thought we can tell any story if it's a real story. And then what we try to do is dig into whether or not these stories have some truth to them, or if we can find anything out about them that's, valid. And it's been fun. We love doing it.
That's really good. This is my latest crazy adventure. of
Yeah,
this. I went to, I call it Upper Sandusky, my hometown,
it's
and
cool.
I got it from watching. I'm an Andy Griffith guy. I've seen,
Oh yeah.
I can memorize those silly movies or Barney, those guys. And the one guy was on there, and he said, he made the statement. He wasn't from there, but he said, "Yeah, I want this to be Mayberry, my hometown." So I thought that's really a neat title. So it's Upper Sandusky, my hometown, and I really love living here. It's always been good to me. I'm pretty much of a, I don't get out. I mean, I don't get in clubs and all that kind of stuff, but I love living here.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
okay,
Upper Sandusky is such a, I mean, I think there's 1,000 little towns like this, but
yeah,
when you live here, you realize like, man, it's just, there's no traffic.
mhm,
We're close enough to everything. I mean,
right,
you can be to an airport in an hour.
yeah,
You can be to Columbus in an hour, Toledo in an hour, Cleveland in an hour and 45 minutes.
you got it.
Findlay and Mansfield and Marion have really anything you need.
Yeah,
And then Upper has just this quiet feel to it. I mean, it's dark at night. It's just,
yeah.
this is a nice, quiet town. We love it. And we like raising our kids here
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think when you're young, you kind of bust your tail to get away.
Oh, yeah.
When you get married and have a couple of kids, you say, "Well, Upper Sandusky's not a bad place to raise kids."
Oh, yeah. I did the same thing. Lived in Columbus for a while, Cincinnati, and then lived out west in Wyoming. And then once my wife and I were going to get married, it was like, well,
Yeah, that's really
time to go home.
okay. Now, next thing, which I really like, is wine stock. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that is such a neat thing, such a neat creation. And I'm one of those guys that likes creations like that. I like people that have enough gumption, have enough confidence to start something and say, "Hey, if it doesn't float, it doesn't float, but we're going to try." And you
Yeah.
guys have really done that, and it gets better. Where'd that come up?
So it's I'm just one of many.
I
There's a
know that.
large
I
group
know.
of us, and
Yeah.
it started with really probably the brainchild of it is my brother-in-law Greg Moon, who
Yeah.
works for the Wyandotte County Office of Economic Development, and we started the Younger Professionals 10 years ago, and we thought, well, we need a major fundraiser, and Alex Barth, who's another one of these early guys, he said, well, why don't we have a music festival? There's no music festival.
I know.
Let's throw a music festival. And so we started brainstorming, and uh, it's sort of one of those ideas where the name Wyanstock, someone said it, and we're like, everyone was like, "That's it. That's what we're
That's
doing. That's what we're going to call it." And it ran from there. So I could be off a year, but I believe that was like 2011 or 12. And so
right.
we started thinking about it. And then that next summer we did it, and we pulled it off somehow. Brian Kimmel sells all our sponsorships. Greg Moon is like he's kind of the director. All the information sort of flows through him, and he keeps track of everything. And then, I kind of took over sort of the artsy, how do we make it cool? Those guys make sure it's going to work, and we're going to have money.
Really good.
And then I kind of work on the vibe factor of it, and how do we keep that going and getting decent bands. We try to keep the bands local,
Mhm.
but then have one or two, bring somebody in,
Right.
and it gives like all these local artists. Like last year we had 15 bands,
Yeah.
and only 2 of them were from outside of Wyandotte County.
That's that's really good.
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
I think it's really good, and I think it's good to maybe just what I mean. My 2 cents, just what you're doing, and then that gives new energy and gives
Oh,
juice and things like that to the whole program. But
yeah.
this is the little things you've done. You're selling just little things, and I think that's a positive to me because you guys are looking to add. Now you're not going to go crazy adding, but every year you add a little bit,
We do.
fine tune it a little bit. Okay. I have all these great, crazy ideas. So,
No,
okay.
good. Yeah, that's how we
Really,
are. I mean, and it's just, I've
I
got
think
all
it's,
these ideas, and every once in a while we have the time and the
yeah,
stars align, and then we're
right.
able to pull something off. And it's been fun to be a part of Weinstock. There's no question.
I,
I'm
I,
proud of it for
I
sure.
think it's really neat. Okay. Yeah. I've talked about teacher, golf coach, real stories podcast. Now, wine stock. Now, I also tell me about the Star Theater. You
Oh
do.
yeah, so
How are you tied in? Because I saw pictures and how are you, Graham, tied in with it?
well, my wife Jordan Bacon, her father David Bacon, has been a long time. They actually, so my wife's uncle Jeffrey Roth started the Star Theater.
Yeah,
Well, I shouldn't say
right,
that. He started the Star Players.
right.
The Star Theater was a thing with
Yeah,
Leo
I didn't.
Jones, and that's been around for a long time. But the Star Players and doing the plays up there kind of started with Joy Roth and Jeffrey Roth, who are my wife's aunt and uncle. Well,
Right.
really, they're Jeffrey Roth is my wife's first cousin once removed.
Yeah.
He's David's cousin. So,
So
and then
trust me.
Ruth,
Yeah.
yeah, I can go on. Ruth Bacon, my wife's grandma, started Star Kids on, I don't know, 76 or something like that. So my wife's always been in the Star Theater. And then when I was in high school, I was kind of like a jock, and
Yeah.
uh, they needed boys to be in in a musical. I think it was Little Abner my sophomore year. And so I tried out, and I turns out I like people paying attention to me.
Yeah.
So I liked it. And I was in a play, did like a murder mystery that Jonathan Miller wrote in high school with just four of us. And that was my first time at the Star. And then I've just kind of every once in a while, if the timing is right, I've done a show up there. Most recently, we did one that my father-in-law David wrote during COVID that we did last year called Bottoms Up at Bottoms Down Manor, which was just like a fun spoof farce play. And so I just do it. I just try to get involved, and my kids like it. My son Thomas loves the theater, and so now he's doing it, and we just love. I love local. I'm a local person, no matter where I'm at. I love when places have local things going on, and I guess I'm just kind of like, if I don't do it, who it? I need to put up or shut up. So I try to get involved.
I agree. And I think the other thing is, you know, we need to get away from that jock mentality and offer other things for kids. There's nothing, I grew up that way,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
there's nothing better than having other opportunities for kids. The kids that don't want to play basketball, football, baseball, or whatever, golf. We need other, and that's what I think is such a neat thing. This thing, we've talked for 21 minutes, and I usually try to cut these to 20. So we're going to hurry because I've been told that they get boring after 20 minutes. So not mine, but video podcasts in general. But real quickly, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Bacons. I knew them long before you did. No, I'm joking with you.
Oh, probably. Yeah, I'm sure.
We grew up. We spent about 5 or 6 years right beside them. And that way,
Okay.
with Ruth and Forey Bacon.
Okay.
I'll tell you, there's and David and
Jenny.
Jenny. I couldn't, but she'd kill me. But I think as good a people as anybody.
Oh,
Ruth Bacon is the salt of the earth, and Forey would always be, to me, salt of the earth. Those guys were
oh,
so good. And I
oh,
remember a joke, and we'll go on. How times changed. Ruth Bacon worked at Heidelberg,
yep.
and I used to think, man, 2 or 3 days a week, she drives all the way to Tiffin just to teach. Okay, I spent 20 years driving to Lakota,
Yeah.
which was about a 40-minute drive. But those people are salt of the earth to me. They're
Oh,
just great people.
we have so many things in our family where we just like, what would Ruth say? What would Ruth say about this? And
It's so
because
neat.
they're sharp as a whip, and man, you're right. Forrest Bacon, I was lucky enough to get to be around him for long enough to understand who he was. And he's a classic example of the greatest generation.
Yeah.
That those guys they did what they had to do. And they worked hard and played hard. They're just fun, good people.
Okay, one of my last questions. I saw you strumming the guitar and play, and so tell me about your band. What's with your experience? What are you doing with that then?
Okay, so yeah, my uncle Kevin Treadway played guitar, and when he died of cancer when I was in college, and he had a bunch of guitars. And my aunt asked all of us if anybody was interested in the guitars. And so I was like, I was like 20. So yeah, I'll take a guitar. So I got this Samick guitar, acoustic guitar, and I found a book at the library and learned to play, just learned on my own. And would play, just played in my apartment. Never thought that I'd ever play out anywhere. And then I started playing in classes. I would make deals with kids. Like we would write a song, like a review. And I'd say, if you guys write it, I'll bring my guitar in and we'll play it and record it. And so that was my first people I played in front of were my students. And then when my brother-in-law, Greg Moon, came along, he played guitar. And so once we found out we played, we'd go on vacation together. Be like, oh, well, let's bring our guitars. And then we started playing. And then his old bandmate from college, Eric Pennard, Pennard Barbershop, the son there, he played the drums. And so then next thing we knew, we got asked to play at a birthday party of one of my friend's wives. He's like, hey, we were going to get One Ton Diesel and they can't play. Do you guys want to play? And we're like we don't. Yeah, like, okay, we'll play. And then we did it. And we just were like, oh gosh, we have to keep doing this. We actually joked that night we got done. And one of us, I forget who said it, but they're like, so we're quitting our jobs on Monday. We're just going to do this. So it just grew and grew. And we ended up we have 11 members in Grape Jam. With, all the women, all of our wives play wind instruments of some sort. And then, and we just play like covers and fun stuff. And it's all just totally for fun. We always joke that really what we want to do is pay for babysitters. If we can make enough money to pay for babysitters, we'll do it. Or pay for a VRBO. We'll go play at Indian Lake and you just pay for a cabin and makes for like a little free vacation getaway, but it's fun. We have a blast doing it. And, hopefully it lasts. We're taking a little break this year because we've got a couple guys two guys building houses and just some other stuff going on. So we're sort of like chilling out on it for the year, maybe for at least through the summer. So, but yeah, it's fun.
Greg, Graham, it's really been neat. Okay. I've learned a lot and I've got to know you a lot. I hope that, people already know these things, but I didn't. So now,
not everybody. The thing I find about small town is people are like, oh, everybody knows everyone. It's like, you would think that, but really you don't. I mean, it's like, I recognize people's names, but it's not like we've all met. It's kind of fun that I'm still getting to meet at our age. We're still getting introduced to each other and getting to meet. So it's fun. I've enjoyed doing it, man. I think this is cool. I love this setup that you have. This, like, the screen looks sweet. And you do a great job. I love it.
Well, the last thing I would say is, I want the whole purpose is really to expose people from Upper Sandusky. Now, I want to go out of town and in town. I can't do just everybody, but I would, if anybody's really interested in things like that, get a hold of me. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
You did a great job. I appreciate it. And thank you very much.
Hey, yeah. Thanks, John. We'll talk later.